Peter Burke. Peter is the founder and president of Workforce Research Group. They're based in Texas in the US, and they are partnering with Aviation Business News on best places to work in aviation, which we launched a couple of weeks ago at the T2RL event in London. So Peter, welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you. Yeah, good to see you, Lee.
Let's just start by talking about you and your business and how you came to operate Workforce Research Group. I know you've been doing this a long time, but just a little bit of a history of where you've come from and what you've done in the past.
Yeah, I started my career actually in the media and publishing business, running a business journal, a weekly B2B publication, and we ran a whole host of award programs. And back in the year 2000, we decided to start a best places to work program, thinking, this could be a cool thing to do in our region where our business journal was. And it turned out to be a really awesome event. Not only are you recognizing great employers, many of which we had never heard of before, but you're also providing those employers and people in those organizations that participate with valuable feedback from the employee survey that gets conducted. But from there, we decided to create a company to help other media organizations create their best places to work programs. And, here we are 20 some odd years later. And my firm now manages somewhere in the neighborhood 28, 30 different best places to work, best employer programs all over the world. And our job in all of this is we're the sort of the third party workforce research excellence firm that will help our media partners create the lists that they need for either their region or their particular sector.
Okay, so you specialize in what you just explain how you do it. You put an employee survey out there. I mean, we're currently looking for companies to register to take part in this, and that's going to happen towards the end of the year. And then next year you will start then how does it work after that? Once we've got our companies registered, what happens after that?
Yeah, so it's a two-part assessment process. So the first part, we ask about what you do for your employees, different benefit schemes, different things you do for fun, different perks, different things that you might do that employees love about where they work. That's part one. It's worth about 20% of the overall evaluation. But the bigger part is the employee engagement survey that we conduct, which is really the most complicated part in all of this, is getting organizations to submit their email addresses. And then we send out survey links to each one of those email addresses, and they're all unique to prevent fraud. And so they then complete the survey. It takes about 10 minutes to complete the employee survey. We get all that information back. We crunch the numbers. We determine who's good enough to make the best places to work list. And then we rank them. And then we turn those lists over to our media partner. And then they run with it for recognition at an event or a special publication, really highlighting the achievement of those who've made the best places to work list.
Yeah. So there's a kind of a benchmark you've got to achieve. Once you've achieved that benchmark, you are officially at best places in whatever sector or region.
Correct.
But then you get an actual score. So actually, if you get is it a percentage score?
Well, it's not as much a score as it is. Yeah. The process generally is free to go through the process to find out whether you make the list or not. Yeah. But a lot of organizations will invest in the employee feedback. So we have a data dashboard that you can purchase access to, and it's relatively inexpensive, less than £1,000, I believe. But it will give you all of the results of your employee engagement survey, not only just as percentages and graphs and charts, but it's also, you can break it down by different demographic groups, different length of tenure, different age groups, different departments. So it becomes a management tool. So the two main reasons why organizations participate in our programs is one, hey, if you make the list, that's fantastic. Being able to use the best places to work logo, it gives your brand as an employer a real boost, especially in sectors and regions where battle for talent, finding good people and hanging on to good people is really hard. To have that distinguishing factor of being a best place to work really means something. So that's reason one. But even if you don't make the list, the second reason why organizations will participate is they want this information. They want to know what their employees are thinking and feeling so they can get better and they can see their results compared to the benchmarks of those who made the list, those who didn't make the list. We are very protective of the anonymity of the employees who take the survey. So we've got all sorts of measures in place to make sure that none of that anonymity is revealed to the employer when they buy their feedback information. But those are the two big reasons: make the list, and also there's feedback available that's really valuable.
A lot of companies will do this sort of internally anyway, I guess, but it'd be part of an internal HR processes. And you talk to a number of companies, and they go, "Yeah, we think we know what our employees want to think about us." What's the advantages of taking part in something like this, which has got that sort of degree of independence, and it's not just an internal process?
Yeah, there's a number of things. There are a lot of organizations who are, when someone says, "Hey, what can you do to be a better place to work?" The first thing I say is measure. Find out where you are right now, what your employees are thinking and feeling. And a lot of organizations, to their credit, will launch some sort of an internal survey. But there's a couple of reasons why using an outside organization like ours in a best places to work program is advantageous. Number one, you can't beat the price. You do a lot of these internal surveys, and you may have an HR company helping you with it. It gets pretty expensive. But when you create your own questions, you have really nothing to benchmark it against. So when you participate in a best place to work program, there's a survey that we use. It's been tested. All the questions that we've put together have all gone through the PhDs who know what they're doing in terms of how to ask questions. And then you have the benchmarks. So when you do an internal survey, it's usually maybe a committee of people just throwing questions out there who've never really crafted questions before for a survey. So you never know if the credibility of the data you're collecting is really good. And they don't have anything to compare it to. They might be able to compare it to last year's numbers, but when you can compare it to what does a best place to work look like, it's really a huge benefit. And I think the last probably advantage is the anonymity. I think employees are a lot less apt to complete an internal survey where they know that internal people are getting the individual results from each employee. That makes response rates, that makes people's honesty really kind of go off the charts. When you have a third party like us, where we say, "Hey, your data is coming to us, and the only thing that your employer is going to get is an aggregated average for your particular department," is pretty much as far detailed as it goes. So that anonymity is pretty important as well.
Yeah. And you work in a number of areas. I know we're obviously in a sector in aviation, but you run schemes in sort of regions, geographies, cities. Just give us some idea of the kind of schemes that you currently run.
So there are, we manage a bunch of citywide programs, like the best places to work in Los Angeles, or San Diego, or Baton Rouge, Louisiana, if you will. But we also run a bunch of statewide programs as well, like the best places to work in Indiana or Illinois. Here in the US, we have Canadian programs that we run. Some are city-based, but we also do, like you mentioned, sector or industry-based programs where we're looking at the best places to work in healthcare, or best auto dealerships to work for. Or and in the UK, we've run several programs in the PR and marketing campaign, or the broadcast sector, or campaign magazine, but in the PR and marketing sector is what I meant to say. And then others like in aviation, so the industry ones are quite unique in that it's, when you're a best places to work in your own industry, that's really quite impressive.
Yeah. Do you find companies are using these more today to compete for talent? We know in aviation there's a massive dearth of good talent, and that's across the board. It's not only is it in the cabin, but we know there's not enough qualified engineers out there. So our sectors in general, looking to these kind of schemes because there is a lack of human resource out there, and they've got to get what they can get hold of and compete.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a time where organizations spent their time, energy, and money on branding themselves for their product or their service, whatever they provide, right? Nowadays, it is a lot about that, but it's also a big deal now to spend time, energy, and resources to work on your brand as an employer.
Yeah.
So one of the best things you can do is apply for and achieve a best place to work in your sector, in your region, whatever it might be. Because if you've got an applicant who's looking at your organization or somebody else's, what's the differentiating factor? If it has a best place to work, logo, And a lot of these organizations will make a sticker and put it on their front door, or they will, have it as part of their interview process or whatever. And people are walking around with, hats and jackets on that have the, the logo. People take a lot of pride in that. But also it could really make the difference and tip the scales when it comes to recruiting. When someone looks at that and says, huh, so this is the best place to work. And what I know about best places to work, it's not really about, do you offer, food to all the employees. Is really about, do the employees love working there? And that's the case here. And so when you have that, oh my gosh, it's a massive boost for the brand, and makes the difference in recruiting for sure.
Yeah, I've had a number of conversations since we launched Best Places in Aviation. People talking about it's the employee experience. Everyone talks about consumer experience because clearly that's what's visible and that's what seems to get you a lot of kudos amongst consumers. But you can't do that unless you've got amazing employee experience behind that, because a happier employee does their job better. And certainly if they're customer facing, they're much more likely to give that customer a great experience as well.
Absolutely. And it's intentional. It's not just how we stumbled on a culture where employees love to come to work. It is very intentional. It starts by measuring, finding out what your employees are thinking and feeling, finding the pain points, improving on those, and communicating, and all of those things that are important in creating an environment where employees really look forward to going to work. And that is, believe it or not, it's becoming more and more common, but it's still a unique thing.
Yeah. So we got to the point where you've got this survey. The survey goes to the employees. The survey is the same for every sector, and it's just a set survey that asks employees what they think about their work. Yeah.
Yeah. The survey was engineered to be used in any sector, any region. You can go online and look at the survey. We're fully transparent about what we're going to be asking employees and what we're going to be asking the employers in the employer survey. But you will see that the questions and they're really statements that we put in front of the employees are things like, I trust what my manager tells me. Well, that would apply to any job that anybody would ever have. They have someone that they report to, and do you trust them? I mean, that's one of probably 70 questions that we ask. Survey, like I said, takes about 10 minutes to complete, but it's you're responding to agree through strongly disagree on each of the statements that are put in front of you. So it's really quick. There's a couple of open-ended questions that we ask. We don't use those for scoring. Those are pretty much there so that if someone wants to get access to their data dashboard, not only do they get the data, but they also get the answers to the open-ended questions as well. So it does become a real management tool. But yeah, so those statements are all about whether you agree or disagree, and they can be used in any sector. The only thing that would be different in aviation is perhaps the demographic questions in terms of departments and where they work. That would be unique to that sector, and that really only applies to when you have your data dashboard and you want to sort by different department or different area of where people work.
Yeah. And you require a certain percentage of employees to fill it in, so you've got results that you can rely on as well. So what's the targets you set?
So 40%. So not all the employees have to complete the survey, which is the beautiful thing. And we had statisticians look at that and kind of say, okay, what is the percentage response that we need to make sure that the data is credible and representative of that organization? And if you have 25 or more employees, it's 40%. If you have less than 25, between 15 and 25 employees, that percentage goes to 80%. But yeah, and we track that, and we work with all of the organizations that are going through this process to keep them up to date on their response rates and where they are, and if they need more. And we give them help in terms of completing or getting higher response rates so that their data is credible.
Yeah. And presumably you work with all different sizes of companies in the current schemes you run. So everything from thousands and thousands of employees on a global basis to something quite small in one location.
Yeah. As small as 15 and as big as 20,000, I
Yeah,
mean,
that many. Okay.
and the way our organization is set up, we're designed for this. So big, small, we can, we do random samples. If it gets really big, we do random samples of employees. So they're not submitting all email addresses, that we'll do a unique sample. And again, all of the statistics and all of the sort of numbers behind it all make sense when you're looking for a 40% response rate, even from a random sample, is still good enough to have credible data.
Yeah. And just how long do you give for those responses to come in once you start to do the employee survey? How long have you got to sort of
the survey's in the field for 2 weeks.
Okay.
And we send, I think, 5 different reminders. So we send it out on a Friday. They might get 1 or 2 reminders the following week, and then 1 or 2 reminders the week after that. And again, we're tracking the response rates, and if response rates aren't high enough, we're communicating with the organizations to let them know that, so that they might want to send something out from themselves to kind of say, hey, look, if you've gotten this, email from Workforce Research Group, please be sure to click on the link and fill out the survey.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to mention too is that we spend a lot of time and energy on looking at the data for anomalies to make sure that there isn't any kind of attempt to cheat or to work the system. And that's an important part of what we do. And it's one of the reasons why every email address from an employee that gets sent to us gets sent a unique link, so that you can't just forward it around and have, maybe multiple people filling out multiple surveys. We don't want that. We want one person to fill out one survey.
Do companies ever incentivize them employees to fill it in, or does that skew things, or is it just sort of free?
It's frowned upon. Because there's a very fine line between encouraging employees to complete the survey and encouraging employees to complete the survey. And, oh, by the way, make sure you have favorable, things to say about our organization so we can make this list. Very fine line between the two. So we would prefer that there were not incentives to complete it, because that could skew things a little bit. That said, there are organizations spend a lot of time just communicating that, this is in play, fill it out, please. This is going to be important to us. So the more, I think what incentivizes employees to fill out the survey is the more comfort they have with the anonymity. And I think knowing what their employer wants to do with the information. If an employer is saying, we're doing this because we want to know, be honest with us so that we can get better. Employees are more apt to complete that survey knowing that, hey, they're actually asking my opinion. I want to give it, and do so in an environment that isn't just giving them direct information, but it's coming through us so that they can get, they can stay anonymous.
Yeah. And a final thought on the benefits of doing this. If I'm a company thinking about registering myself, I guess one of them is that a lot of companies are doing some amazing things for their staff. They're doing some amazing things in terms of training and retention, and trying to make the workplace itself a more amenable place to come to work. And it's very hard to get that out there. You don't often communicate that in press releases, and if you did, no one would probably be that interested. But this is a real conduit for saying that, for demonstrating the fact that you are trying hard. You are reaching out to maybe a new audience, maybe a new set of potential employees. And that's what we want this to do, to show the aviation industry is trying to get out to a new workforce, a more diverse workforce, essentially.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, when you're Aviation Business News, you're the most respected media outlet in that sector, and we have a pretty good reputation as well as Workforce Research Group as being, this is what we do for a living, and our mission is to have the most credible lists that you can get. So when you combine those two, it's not just a kind of a fly-by-night, oh, hey, we bought ourselves a moniker or a gong or whatever it is that you're going to be promoting. It's set from the credibility. You're putting your credibility behind this as a media organization for the sector. We're putting our credibility behind it as an expert in this field. So you combine those two, and all of a sudden, that's a really meaningful award to win, and something that absolutely want to brag about and talk about and promote, so that potential, not only, it's interesting, not only potential employees, but the people who actually work there. Who might think on one level, like, yeah, this place really isn't all that great. And then they, compete, and all of a sudden, well, hey, the majority of employees love where they work. and it's in here. So you can actually kind of get past the whole, the grass isn't always greener when you go across the street to a competitor. And so retention is huge. And our research shows that when you make one of these lists, your voluntary turnover or resignations go down by a pretty significant margin, because people are sort of realizing, oh, hey, I actually do work for a great place to work.
Yeah. Lots of reasons to do it, and we hope there's lots of companies out there that will enter. I've had lots of conversations with people since we launched. I think it's a great idea. It's pretty unique in the industry. I think no one else is really doing it. It's obviously a huge industry to do it in, so we know it's going to sort of start and it's going to grow over the many years, and we can do lots of things with this. But we look forward to working with you in the first year, Peter, and it culminating next year in an awards ceremony, which we will announce details of shortly. So, but thanks very much for your partnership on this. And good luck with it.
All right, Lee, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks very much. Cheers.